The Carolina Hurricanes fell short in Game 3 of their Round 2 series against the New York Rangers. But just what went wrong in that game for the Hurricanes? Find out in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before, where the game starts. And as always, you can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes, myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. Rate the show 5 stars on whatever streaming platform you're listening on, and subscribe on YouTube. And in today's episode, folks, we will be going over Game 3 of the Eastern Conference second round series between the Hurricanes and the Rangers. We have the 5-day forecast for the Hurricanes, as well as just some hot takes. It is Locked On Hurricanes after dark, after all. So getting into Game 3 for the Hurricanes up in New York, the Hurricanes in Games 1 and 2, they look good. Not great, but good. I feel that home ice was playing a big factor in those games. And that was something that heading into that Metro Division clinching game, something myself and John from Locked On Rangers said that be a big factor, going through this postseason, and that these teams very well could face each other in the playoffs. It's obviously happened. The Hurricanes are still leading this series 2-1 as of right now, but something has got to give for the Hurricanes. They are now 0-4 on the road in the playoffs. They didn't win a single game in the Boston series. And now they've dropped their first game in Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. And if they are going to win this series, and then they play conference final, if they make it to the conference final and play Tampa Bay, you got to win on the road. And that is something that the Hurricanes, they need to figure it out. I don't know if it's their game rituals or what it may be. If it's a mental thing, it has to be. It has to be a mental thing. Because you look at, I think the Boston series is great for this. You look at games 1 and 2 there, how dominant the Hurricanes were. And then games 3 and 4 up there in Boston, they look like crap. It has to be a mental thing. I don't know if it's the crowds getting to them or what. Because, this team, they're really, really good on the road in the regular season. And, yeah, the playoffs are more intense. The crowds are rowdier and all that stuff. But this team, they have got to get it going on the road. And it's one of those things. I'm almost at a loss for words of what team even needs to do, because it's a complete 180 from what they do at home to what they do on the road. It looks like a completely different hockey team. And it's not just their play on, because there have been moments here and there where they've looked all right. You had a few in the Boston series, And he had a few moments in last night's game where they looked all right, but nothing to frankly really write home about. And the only ones that we've really been able to look at being consistent, like even in these games, Antti Raanta continues to be great for the Hurricanes. And him in that game was the only reason it wasn't worse than what it was. And Raanta, he again has continued to be the one consistent bright spot all playoff long. And another thing is not just on the road, but just in general, is their power play. The power play has been abysmal. Yeah, it's shown flashes here and there, sure, but really since not just in the playoffs, but going back to the beginning of March, the Hurricanes' power play has been really underperforming and has been a really big letdown. This was an issue last postseason. You guys that were around then, you'll remember that. You'll remember how I was criticizing the team for that. I criticized them during the regular season for this. That's been something I've criticized this team with ever since I started this show. Is just how inconsistent their power play ends up being on these playoff runs. And it's again one of those things, just with how they're playing on the road, I don't know what the heck is going wrong. Because they have all of the tools there to get it going. They have the talent there. I don't know if it's something that needs to be shaken up or what. I mean, a lot of folks kind of put to Tony DeAngelo and Teuvo Teravainen not having really good chemistry on that first unit. Something need to change there, maybe. But it's also like, I also don't want to change things at this point. You're in the middle of a second round series. Now isn't really the time to start with an entirely new power play unit, But on the flip side, your power play sucks. And you got to get something going if you're going to win this series, win the conference final, and win the Stanley Cup. You got to do something. And what they're doing right now is not working. I've seen quite a few people say that this, come offseason, they need to hire a dedicated power play coach. And honestly, I agree. This is getting very, very frustrating. Year in and year out, these power play units being a consistent weak spot in the postseason. Again, yes, it's not 100% bad all the time. No, we have good moments. We do. But it's more often than not, we're sitting here having this conversation over and over and over. We were having it last year against Tampa Bay and Nashville. We were having it in the bubble against New York and Boston there. And we're having it again this year against Boston and Tampa Bay. Something has got to give when it comes to this power play. I think that really needs to be a point of contention, one, in practice right now, but also going into next season. Get you a really good power play coach or something, because what you're doing right now, yeah, it works during the regular season, but again, we're going back to March. This isn't even the beginning of the playoffs. This is the beginning of March. And it has been abysmal as a whole. And they have got to seriously get something going with the power play. Because for so long in the regular season, it was you're one of the top power play teams. And then come March, you just keep slipping. Oh, you have a good game here. Then you start slipping again. Good game here, good game there. And now we're in the playoffs, and it's been crap. Again, a few things here and there, but as a whole, it's not been good. The Hurricanes power play is going to be the death of them in the postseason. Plain and simple. We have got to get it going there, and they got to win on the road as well. But this is something that I honestly just feel like I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, because it is the same thing every time. It was the same thing in every Boston loss. Power play doesn't show up. Offense doesn't show up. You got some good goaltending from Antti Raanta, but that's about it. And it's been the same thing every single time. And that's going to be what cost this team hanging another Stanley Cup banner there in PNC Arena. Is dumb stuff like this. I get it. It's easy for me to sit here at my desk. It's easy for you, to sit or wherever you're sitting and criticize this stuff. But when it's the same thing night after night, it's frustrating. It really, really is. But it's in the past. Game 3, it's in the past. And there's nothing else we can do about it. Rangers won that game. Igor Shesterkin, he was freaking awesome for the Rangers. He had how many stops? He had 43 stops on 44 shots. Absolutely fantastic. There's a reason he's a Vezina finalist and a Hart finalist. There's a reason. Okay? It's not like we're playing a scrub goaltender or anything like that and making him look like a Vezina finalist and a Hart finalist. No, the guy is the real deal. And that is something that does need to be taken into consideration in this game, is that you're going against some elite level goaltending. Okay? And yeah, I do give them that. Okay? But you have 44 shots on goal. You should probably at least had 2. That's just me. But, again, game's over and done with it. It's been talked about to death at this point. It's Locked On Hurricanes After Dark, after all. And now all we can really do is just look ahead. Look ahead to Game 4. Look ahead to Game 5 and what the Hurricanes can expect from their team in these games. And we'll dive into all of that right after this quick break. And today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is, of course, a lifestyle-friendly multivitamin. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, AG1 contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It supports better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. And one of its best things is that it's based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than that cold brew habit that you've built up. It's cheaper than getting all of those different supplements that you always get. You're investing in all-in-one nutritional insurance. And with over 7,000 5-star reviews, Athletic Greens is recommended by professional athletes, trusted by health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Now, folks, looking ahead to the rest of the week for the Carolina Hurricanes in this edition of the Hurricanes Forecast. Now, looking at practice earlier today, one thing that was grabbing a bunch of headlines was that Frederik Andersen was practicing. He didn't have full practice. He practiced for about a good 30 minutes or so and then left the ice. It's a pretty light practice. He's done a little bit of stuff with goaltending coach and here and there, but getting out there with the team hasn't been something we haven't seen that since early mid-April. So to see that, I think that is obviously very, very promising. It had gotten to the point where Rod Brind'amour had told us to stop asking, for updates on Frederik Andersen because he didn't know when he would be coming back. So, I'm obviously not expecting him to be playing tomorrow. I'm not expecting him to be playing Thursday. I would say you could maybe expect him in like a game 6 or game 7. But it's very promising to see that, all right, he's back out there practicing with the team and not just individually with goaltending coach. So do I think we'll get an update on him of when he will be playing or when we could expect him to at least be available? I don't really expect that anytime soon. Maybe later on in the week, but like tomorrow after a morning skate? No, I don't expect that. And I do think, it's like I said with Walt Ruff, it's not a situation of we need Freddie right now. We're in capable hands. It's just us wanting him back and wanting updates on his health and, is he doing all right? It's really just that kind of thing. But, like I said, I'm not expecting him back anytime soon. It's just nice to see, all right, he's getting back out there, he's practicing. And I think that's very, very good. And one thing, obviously, we just spent a lot of time criticizing it, but the Hurricanes power play was something that, was really focused on in practice earlier today. And, the units that we had out there were better than what they were. I said that I felt, they could maybe use a bit of a shakeup there, mainly like separating Teravainen and DeAngelo. They didn't have good chemistry, and that was something that was done at practice today with the first unit consisting of Aho, Jarvis, Niederreiter, Trocheck, and DeAngelo. Second unit being Kotkaniemi, Necas, Svechnikov, Teravainen, and Slavin. I like those units as a whole, and it'll be interesting to see how things go, if they roll with these, come game time. That will be something that is very, very interesting because I like the idea of these. And it's very much, one of where they're spreading the wealth almost. They're not, loading up one unit with Aho, Svechnikov, Teravainen. They're not doing that. And, they're just spreading it out, which I think is smart. It's just going to be a matter of, one, is obviously, none of those guys being in the penalty box, mainly Tony DeAngelo and Andrei Svechnikov there. But, if we were to get that first unit out, how is that going to gel? And again, I like it on paper. It's good on paper, but seeing it out there, in a game, I think is really going to be what's sells me on it, and probably what's going to sell a lot of other people on shaking up these power play units. I think we all know it's something that needs to be done with how little is going on it. It's just a matter of how's it going to work out. And I think that'll be interesting to see if we see that come tomorrow. But that's just something it's one thing to talk about right now, but we'll just have to see come game time for that. And looking ahead to the rest of the week, Game 5 was given an official start time and date by the NHL. It was announced for Thursday at 7 p.m. That is, of course, going to be in Raleigh at PNC Arena for that game there. I think, hopefully, we can close it out there. Hopefully we can, get a 3-1 lead tomorrow and get a, series winning on Thursday. Now, say things don't go our way, we can look at Saturday being Game 6. That will obviously be back up in New York City if that were to happen there. But, those, again, all we can do is sit and wait for those. All we can do is sit and wait for tomorrow or today, depending on when you're listening. And then, of course, on Thursday, gotta wait for Thursday to get here. Same with Saturday if we have a game on Saturday. But regardless of what happens here in these games, the winner of this series, which of course we're hoping is the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, is going to be facing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Eastern Conference Final. The Tampa Bay Lightning completed their sweep of the Florida Panthers, very much told little brother to go sit down, pretty much. And they showed that they're still Florida's team. They're to their 6th conference final in 8 seasons. They're still looking to three-peat. So the Lightning are on a tear right now. And the Hurricanes, they'll have their work cut out for them, or the Rangers will have their work cut out for them. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know who we will be facing. That is, of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning there. And, looking across, to the other conference in the Western Conference, the Colorado Avalanche took a 3-1 series lead over the St. Louis Blues last night or tonight in Game 4, winning that game 6-3. And the Edmonton Oilers are leading the Calgary Flames 2-1 in their series. They are playing on Tuesday night after the Hurricanes and the Rangers. So the field is thinning. We already got our first conference final participant, and before we know it, could be seeing another. Could be seeing another come Wednesday if the St. Louis Blues are able to avoid elimination. We'll see. They're in Denver. That's going to be a tough task. And the Colorado Avalanche are looking to really get past that second round. That's something they haven't been able to do. But of course, you can go tune into Locked on Lightning, Locked on Panthers, Locked on Blues, Locked on Avs, Locked on Flames, Locked on Oilers, and if you so wish, the Locked on Rangers show as well. You can tune into all of those shows for all the coverage of those teams. I just think it's worth mentioning here in the forecast as well. But it's Locked on Hurricanes After Dark, folks. Let's get a little bit spicy with some hot takes, and we will dive into those right after this quick break. Now, folks, Game 4 is right around the corner for you Hurricanes fans. If you want to place a bet on that game, our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now it's time for some hot takes. I've had some of these, built up for a while. Some of these are more recent as well, so it's going to be a little bit of a mixture. And two of these we did touch on earlier in the episode. But if the Carolina Hurricanes cannot get their power play going or can't start winning on the road in the playoffs, they will not get past the Tampa Bay Lightning. Plain and simple. I think you can maybe get past the Rangers. Kind of get lucky like you did against Boston if you continue on the track you're going. You can maybe get past the Rangers, but you're not going to get past Tampa Bay. Yes, you would have home ice in that series, but I still do not think, and that is something that would work in the Hurricanes' favor, of course, having that home ice advantage against Tampa Bay. And I think that could maybe net them a few games there in that series. But again, coming back to the power play, I ranted about it for so long already, and just in this episode, that's not even including past episodes where we've had this discussion. But if they want to get past Tampa Bay, they have got to win on the road and get their power play going. If they don't, they're not going to get past them. Tampa is going to go to a third straight Stanley Cup final. And plain and simple. That's what's going to happen there, in my opinion, at least. And now going into some older hot takes that we've had sitting around. Now, we obviously, have been seeing the finalists for NHL awards right now, and barring a ridiculous statistical season, Jaccob Slavin will never get nominated for the Norris Trophy because he isn't a flashy player. And we all know he is a Norris caliber defenseman. He is an elite defenseman. He is one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. But he is a defensive defenseman. He is not one to go and score a bunch of points. He is not one to make super crazy plays. His game is very, I wouldn't say vanilla, but it's not flashy. It's not filled with highlight reel plays. And that's going to be why he doesn't get nominated. Because you look at a lot of the nominees happening, regardless of the award, it's the guy that scores the most points. Guys that have the flashy high plays. Jaccob Slavin does not have that. Get nominated. Again, some kind of ridiculous statistical season that folks just cannot ignore, he is not going to be a finalist and he will not win. He is obviously going to get Norris votes. He gets them, but he is not going to be a finalist and he is not going to win. And, looking back, I think, looking back at the offseason, I think it's one that is going to take a little bit of time to see where it will end up and how those moves will play out over the course of several years. But not bringing back Brock McGinn could end up being a mistake. And I'm not saying re-signing Jordan Martinook was a mistake. I don't think that was. But I do think that they really should have made more of a push to bring back McGinn, because I think that, you look at, he is a bottom six guy, and you look at kind of, you can obviously compare Martinook in there as well, because, that's who they brought back, and kind of how he's a bit injury prone. And that's kind of one thing maybe look at, but when he is able to stay healthy, he is really good, and he does what they need him to do. But I think one of the more, you look at Max Domi, he's had a couple good games, but outside of that, really not a bit of a non-factor. Folks talk about his physicality and his grit and how he gets under other folks' skin. Brock McGinn did that. He was a big physical body that went around and wrecked people. And he stayed healthy. Again, we'll see how this plays out. Down the road, I think it may still be a little bit of a early call on there, but maybe that's a move that we want back. Again, I know that, everyone, is going to be sentimental about stuff. Oh yeah, he scored the double OT winner in that Washington series. He was here for a very long time. But I think that, he was one that had more upside than, who they do have. And I think that we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But I do think that could maybe be a move here, like another year or two. We're looking at that and like, we should have kept McGinn, And, because I think, like Dougie, I think you kind of look at him, walking in free agency, and the season he had in New Jersey, he didn't have a good season. So yeah, you could easily chalk that up to, Dougie didn't have a good season in New Jersey. Hurricanes got a bargain, to take his place, and all that stuff. But I still think, hey, we need to give these types of things about 2 years, because these are guys that are going into new systems, and stuff happens. Again, like Dougie, stuff happens. But yeah, it's going to be one that I think, could very well have that, be one that we want to bring back. And, speaking of bringing folks back, so to speak, I think that Tom Dundon and Dom Waddell's lack of loyalty to folks could end up hurting them in one way or another. And yes, they have built a winning team. After years and years of mediocrity, they have built a winner. And that is obviously, good. And again, this is a business. You cannot always bring every single guy back, no matter how sentimental or attached you are to these guys. Again, like Brock McGinn, like Dougie Hamilton, it is business, and you can't necessarily always bring guys back. But you look at some of these bridges that they've burned, or seemingly burned. You look at Alex Nedeljkovic. I think that, you look at, what he signed for in Detroit, signed for less than what he was asking for here. And, he really put that team on his back some this year. He was playing in Detroit. His stats weren't going to be as good. And I think, that was one that still is a head-scratching move to me. Despite, how good the Hurricanes goaltending has been this year, as a whole at least, because you struggled for years and years and years to replace Cam Ward. Ever since his prime ended, injuries started catching up with him. He's getting overplayed, playing hurt, all that stuff. We all know that he was done dirty. We all know that. And essentially kind of tarnished his legacy there. Because a lot of folks remember, those last few years where he wasn't the Cam Ward of old. You've been struggling to replace him. Peter, Curtis, James, and these guys were nice, temporary fixes, but they were never going to be the long-term guy. And then you had this kid drafted, you developed him up through your system, you got a shot, quarterfinals. Went on a hell of a run. You give up on him. Yeah, he had flaws in his game. I think we all can admit that. He was not a perfect goalie. He was not Andre Vasilevsky or Marc-Andre. He's not a perfect goalie or anything like that. No. He's still a kid. And I still think that, it's something I'm torn with, because you look at the success that the Hurricanes are having right now. It's great. But did you sacrifice your future? This? I don't know. Then you look at John Forsland, guy that had been with you since Hartford. You did him dirty. And I'm sure there's several. Those are just kind of the first two that come to mind of the way things have been done. And Dougie Hamilton. It's another. And again, it's just one of those things of, is it going to end up hurting them down the road? You kind of screwed over some guys, and now other folks don't want to come play for you because they know some of your business practices, so to speak. I think that is going to be something that we really won't see that for a few more years. But it is something that I do think could very well be a possibility, is the lack of loyalty. And again, you look at guys like Hayden Fleury, Ned, and Justin Falk, and some of these other guys that, Falk was obviously not going to say he needed to go, but he was a long-time Hurricane, and someone that came up through your system. Brock McGinn, a guy that came up through your system and been around for a long time. These guys that have been around for a long time, your new GM, ownership, all that stuff, they don't have to have loyalty to those guys. And you see that in other sports all the time, in football, basketball, baseball. You see that all the time there. New management takes over. They don't necessarily have to have loyalty to those guys. I think when we're really going to see that kind of stuff rear its head is going to be when these guys at this regime is drafting, signing, all that stuff. I think, when those guys get done dirty, and it happens on multiple occasions, I think that's when we'll see, all right, is this going to bite them in the butt? But again, that's going to be something that's way, way down the road. And hopefully it doesn't come to that, but we'll just have to wait and see. And just like for Game 4, we're just going to